I'm Lily, 25, and I've always been the afterthought in my own family. My younger sister, Emily, who's 22, has been the golden child for as long as I can remember. Growing up, I learned to keep my head down, avoid making waves, and accept that no matter what I did, Emily would always shine brighter in my parents' eyes. It wasn't something they said outright, but their actions made it clear enough. Still, I managed. Until Emily decided to take the one thing that mattered to me, the one person I thought might choose me over her. When I was 15, I met Aaron through a mutual friend at a summer BBQ. He was tall, had this effortless confidence, and made everyone laugh without even trying. We clicked instantly. For years, he was just around. Study sessions, group hangouts, the occasional coffee when we bumped into each other. I never worked up the courage to tell him how I felt, but I thought the connection we had was special. My parents liked him too, or so I thought. Things shifted a few months ago during a family BBQ. Aaron had stopped by. It wasn't uncommon since our families were close. Emily wasted no time positioning herself right next to him, laughing a little too hard at his jokes and touching his arm like they were longtime friends. I remember the moment she leaned in to ask him about something personal, something I had told her in confidence. She looked over her shoulder at me, smirking as if daring me to react. I didn't. What could I do? My parents were watching, and I already knew how this would go if I said anything. Sure enough, when I pulled my mom aside later and mentioned that Emily was crossing a line, she brushed it off. Lily, don't be silly. It's just a crush. You're making this into something it's not. But it was something. It became clearer over the next few weeks when Aaron started showing up more often, always at Emily's invitation. She'd drag him to family dinners, movie nights, and even casual get-togethers where he really had no reason to be there. Every time, I had to sit there and watch as they got closer. It felt like watching someone move into your home and rearrange everything without asking. And my parents? They were thrilled. They'd never stop talking about how perfect Emily and Aaron were together. The worst part was hearing my mom's voice through the thin walls of our house, talking to a family friend. She said she was glad Aaron and Emily had hit it off, because apparently I was too introverted to handle a relationship like that. She actually said, Emily's more his speed. It felt like a slap in the face. I started avoiding family events after that, but I couldn't bring myself to stop keeping tabs. Their social media posts were hard to miss, weekend trips, cute couple selfies, inside jokes in the captions. I hated how much I still cared. Every like and comment from friends and family felt like another nail in the coffin of whatever fantasy I'd had about Aaron noticing me. Then, a few weeks later, Aaron proposed to Emily during dinner at my parents' house. I had to sit there, clapping along like everyone else, while Emily squealed and showed off her ring. They didn't even warn me it was happening. I found out later that my parents had known for weeks. Emily had probably planned it that way, knowing it would sting more if I was caught off guard. I excused myself as soon as I could, but even in the bathroom I could still hear them celebrating. Not long after that, I ran into a mutual friend who casually mentioned something that stopped me cold. Apparently, back when Aaron and I were still close, he had been interested in me. But when he'd brought it up to my parents, they told him I wasn't interested, that I was too shy and focused on other things. And then, conveniently, they'd steered him toward Emily. That was the moment everything snapped into focus. This wasn't just Emily being Emily. My parents had played a part in this, whether they meant to hurt me or not. For years, I had let them treat me like an afterthought, but this time I wasn't going to let it slide. I started paying closer attention. Emily and Aaron weren't as picture perfect as they wanted everyone to believe. Emily had secrets, things she probably assumed I didn't know. A massive pile of credit card debt, an old fling she'd kept under wraps, and a knack for keeping her image polished while hiding the cracks. Aaron wasn't clueless either. I could tell he had doubts, but Emily was good at smoothing things over before they got too serious. I realized I could use this. I wasn't sure how at first, but the idea began to form. It wasn't about getting Aaron back. I wasn't delusional enough to think that was possible. This was about showing my parents and Emily exactly what happens when you push someone too far. I started small, reaching out to old friends who were still connected to Aaron and Emily. I didn't need to say much. People love to gossip. The pieces were falling into place, and for the first time in years, I felt like I was the one holding the cards. This wasn't just revenge. It was about finally taking control of a story that had been written without my input for far too long. The first step was to get closer to Aaron again, but in a way that wouldn't raise suspicion. Social media made it easy. I followed him on all platforms, liked a few old posts, and left casual comments on new ones. Nothing too obvious, just enough to remind him I was around. He responded quickly, liking my comments and even replying to one with a little joke. It was the perfect way to re-establish myself in his life without Emily catching on. The opportunity to set the wheels in motion came during a family brunch. Emily, of course, was at the center of everything, making loud declarations about the wedding planning process and showing off her ring to anyone who glanced in her direction. Aaron sat beside her, smiling politely but clearly not as engaged as she was. While the conversation shifted to old relationships for some reason, I casually mentioned a name I knew Aaron wouldn't recognize, one of Emily's exes. I didn't say much, just enough to plant the idea that Emily had been in touch with him recently. Aaron's expression didn't change much, but I noticed the way he started paying closer attention to Emily after that. Over the next week, I focused on digging into Emily's spending habits. I knew she wasn't as financially responsible as she pretended to be, and it didn't take long to find what I was looking for. A few social media posts from mutual acquaintances showed her at expensive restaurants and boutique stores, places Aaron definitely didn't frequent. I tracked down someone who'd been with her during one of those outings, and they confirmed she'd been racking up charges on a credit card that Aaron didn't know about. Armed with this, I crafted an anonymous email and attached screenshots of her unpaid bills, framing it as a concerned friend who thought Aaron deserved to know. I didn't have to wait long for the fallout. A mutual friend mentioned that Aaron had started asking Emily questions about their finances. Apparently, she tried to brush it off, but Aaron wasn't letting it go. Their first big argument happened soon after. I didn't witness it, of course, but the tension between them was obvious when I saw them at a family dinner. Emily looked annoyed and barely spoke, while Aaron spent most of the evening scrolling through his phone. To keep the momentum going, I enlisted the help of a mutual friend who was still close to both Emily and Aaron. During a casual group hangout, I subtly steered the conversation toward Emily's past, making sure the friend had just enough information to accidentally mention Emily's old fling. Aaron's face hardened when the topic came up, and though he didn't say much, it was clear the seed of doubt was growing. Aaron started reaching out to me more after that. It began with small talk, but eventually he started confiding in me about his frustrations with Emily. I played the part of the supportive sister perfectly, agreeing that planning a wedding could be stressful, and that communication was key. I never outright badmouthed Emily, but I didn't have to. Aaron was already starting to see the cracks on his own. Emily, however, wasn't blind to the shift. She confronted me one evening, accusing me of trying to sabotage her relationship. I shrugged it off, playing innocent and insisting I just wanted to support her and Aaron. Our parents, predictably, took my side. They waved Emily off, calling me harmless and reminding her that I was only trying to help. The next step required more discretion. I found a way to contact Aaron's closest friend anonymously. Posing as someone who'd heard rumors, I hinted at Emily's past fling and included just enough details to make it believable. The friend took the bait, bringing it up to Aaron during a casual conversation. That led to yet another confrontation between Aaron and Emily, this time more explosive. From what I heard, Emily accused Aaron of not trusting her, while Aaron shot back that she was hiding too much. It was almost too easy. To add fuel to the fire, I leaked a cryptic post online, something vague enough to stir curiosity but pointed enough for those close to Emily and Aaron to connect the dots. The post implied that their engagement was built on lies, and it spread quickly among their social circle. Wedding planning slowed down noticeably after that. Emily canceled a few appointments, claiming she needed more time to think things through. The tension reached its peak during another family dinner. Aaron showed up late, looking distant and cold. Emily was visibly frustrated, snapping at him over small things until she finally stormed out. Our parents, true to form, sided with Emily, berating Aaron for his behavior. Aaron didn't respond, but I could see the cracks deepening. By this point, the plan was unfolding perfectly. Aaron's trust in Emily was eroding, their relationship was strained, and even my parents were starting to notice that something was off. Emily had always been good at maintaining her image, but with the growing doubts and suspicions swirling around, it was only a matter of time before her carefully crafted facade crumbled, and I wasn't done yet. It didn't take long for Aaron to start showing the cracks in his resolve. One evening, he messaged me out of the blue, saying he'd started therapy to deal with the stress of his relationship. I didn't pry, but I made sure to respond with supportive and encouraging words. He mentioned feeling unsure about whether Emily was the right person for him. I took the opportunity to casually suggest that he deserved someone who's honest and dependable. The message landed just as I'd hoped, leaving him to think about it without making it obvious I was nudging him in a particular direction. Meanwhile, Emily wasn't handling things well. From what I could gather through social media posts and what Aaron shared, she'd started getting more controlling. She demanded constant updates on where he was, got upset if he didn't immediately respond to her texts, and even insisted he spend less time with certain friends. Aaron confided that her behavior was making him miserable, and he didn't know how much more he could take. I played the part of the understanding sister, offering a listening ear and nothing more. Letting him vent without judgment was all it took to strengthen his trust in me. Around this time, I took things a step further. Through one of my connections, I managed to get photos of Emily partying with her ex during the early stages of her relationship with Aaron. She wasn't doing anything incriminating, but the context alone was enough to raise questions. I printed the photos, slipped them into an unmarked envelope, and sent them to Aaron with a typed note. The message simply read, "I thought you deserved to know the truth." No signature, no clues. The impact was immediate. Aaron confronted Emily at a family gathering, demanding answers in front of everyone. Emily tried to deflect, but Aaron wouldn't let it go. She eventually broke down, turning the blame on me and accusing me of poisoning his mind. I stayed calm, insisting I had no idea what she was talking about. Our parents, of course, took her side and accused me of being jealous, but Aaron surprised everyone by defending me. He argued that I'd only ever been supportive and that Emily's actions spoke for themselves. The tension in the room was unbearable, and the fallout spread beyond our family. Word of the photos leaked into Emily's social circle, and her friends began pulling away. It was subtle at first, missed invitations, vague excuses for not meeting up, but it didn't take long for the cracks in her social life to widen. By now, Aaron was openly questioning whether he could go through with the wedding. He even started sharing his doubts with my parents, who were less than pleased. They tried to convince him that Emily was just under stress and that things would improve after the wedding, but Aaron wasn't convinced. At this point, I decided to bring in some reinforcements. I reached out to Aaron's mother, anonymously, and shared details about Emily's behavior and the financial secrets she'd been keeping. I made sure to frame it as concern for Aaron's future, not as an attack on Emily. Aaron's mother was no fool. She started advising him to reconsider the engagement, adding yet another voice of doubt to his growing list of concerns. Things escalated further when Emily canceled their engagement photoshoot, claiming she was too stressed. The decision only fueled more rumors, with people speculating about trouble in paradise. I made sure to subtly stoke the flames, sharing vague comments with mutual friends about how wedding planning could reveal a couple's true compatibility. The whisper spread quickly, and soon everyone was talking about whether Emily and Aaron would even make it to the altar. While this was happening, I reconnected with an old friend who had first-hand knowledge of my parents' blatant favoritism toward Emily. This friend shared stories about how my parents would always defend Emily, even when she was clearly in the wrong, and how they'd dismiss my accomplishments as unimportant. Armed with these stories, I anonymously leaked a detailed post online, exposing their behavior over the years. The post went viral in our community, painting Emily and my parents in an unflattering light. The backlash was swift. My parents' reputation took a hit, with neighbors and acquaintances gossiping about their favoritism. Emily faced even more scrutiny as people began connecting the dots between her upbringing and her current behavior. She tried to do damage control, but the damage was already done. By this point, Aaron was barely speaking to Emily. They still lived together, but the tension was palpable. He started spending more time away from home, often messaging me to vent about how suffocating things had become. Emily, on the other hand, was growing increasingly paranoid, convinced that I was behind everything. She wasn't wrong, but she had no proof. The foundation of their relationship was crumbling, and the cracks were widening by the day. I didn't need to push much harder. Emily and my parents were doing most of the work for me. The breaking point came sooner than I expected. Aaron officially called off the engagement. He didn't do it in some dramatic public scene, though. From what I heard, he sat Emily down in their apartment and told her it wasn't working. He cited irreconcilable differences, and that was that. The news spread quickly. Emily, of course, made sure everyone knew her side of the story first. She spiraled, blaming me publicly for sabotaging her relationship. She called me out at family gatherings, in group chats, and even hinted at it on social media. But I stuck to my strategy: stay calm, stay collected, and deny everything. I let her rant while playing the innocent, supportive sister. Aaron wasted no time moving out of their shared apartment. He rented a place closer to work and started throwing himself into his career. Emily didn't take it well. She begged him to reconsider, trying to spin the breakup as a temporary setback. When that didn't work, she showed up at his new place unannounced, leaving tearful messages on his doorstep. Aaron wasn't having any of it. He started ignoring her calls and texts, and even skipped a few family dinners to avoid seeing her. The distance he put between himself and our family only made things worse for Emily. Around this time, I decided it was time for another push. I leaked more details about Emily's financial mismanagement, nothing too obvious but enough to paint her as irresponsible. A screenshot of her overdue credit card statements, paired with a comment about poor financial planning, made its way to the right people. The damage was immediate. Her reputation in her professional and social circles took another hit, and people started questioning her ability to handle even basic responsibilities. My parents, of course, tried to step in and fix things. They invited Aaron over for a talk, probably hoping to convince him to patch things up with Emily. That backfired spectacularly. Their meddling only confirmed for Aaron that Emily and our parents were a package deal, one he wanted no part of. He left the conversation more resolved than ever to move on, and my parents were left scrambling, unsure how to regain control of the situation. The final nail in the coffin, at least for Emily, was Aaron starting to date someone new. He kept it quiet at first, but it didn't take long for Emily to find out. Her reaction was exactly what I expected. She lashed out, accusing Aaron of moving on too quickly and using the new relationship as a way to hurt her. Her outbursts only made her look worse, pushing more people away. I didn't have to do much to stoke the flames. Emily was burning bridges all on her own. To add to her misery, I made sure my parents found out about Emily's fling with her ex. It wasn't hard. A casual comment about trust being earned, not given, was enough to get them asking questions. Once they started digging, it didn't take long for the truth to come out. My parents were livid, not just at Emily but at themselves for not seeing it sooner. Their golden child wasn't so golden anymore, and they didn't know how to handle it. The fallout extended to Emily's professional life, too. Rumors about her personal drama reached her workplace, and she was eventually fired. Officially, it was for poor performance, but it was clear the gossip had played a part. With no job, no fiancé, and no real support system, Emily started withdrawing. She stopped attending family dinners, avoided her friends, and deleted most of her social media. She was spiraling, and everyone could see it. I made a point to console my parents during this time, playing the role of the concerned older sister. I'd check in on them, ask how Emily was doing, and offer vague suggestions about how to help her. My parents, still reeling from everything that had happened, started seeing me in a new light. For the first time, they appreciated my stability and support. It was subtle, but I could feel the shift. Aaron, meanwhile, reached out to thank me for being there for him. He mentioned how grateful he was to have someone he could trust during such a chaotic time. I didn't need to say much. His gratitude was enough. Every message from him was another reminder that my plan was working. Emily eventually confronted me directly. She showed up unannounced, demanding answers and accusing me of ruining her life. I didn't flinch. I calmly reminded her of the years she spent undermining me, taking what wasn't hers, and enjoying the favoritism of our parents. I didn't raise my voice or lose my composure. By the end of our conversation, she was the one storming off in tears, unable to refute anything I'd said. The shift in my parents' behavior was the final piece of the puzzle. They started distancing themselves from Emily, seeing her more as a liability than the golden child they once adored. They still tried to help her occasionally, but their patience was wearing thin. With every failed attempt to fix her life, they leaned on me more and more. Emily, once the center of attention, was now almost completely isolated. Her friends had pulled away, her career was in shambles, and even our parents were starting to lose faith in her. I, on the other hand, was thriving. For the first time in years, I felt like I was finally in control. After Aaron officially cut ties with Emily, my parents tried to patch things up with him. They invited him over for dinner, called him to check in, and even sent a couple of thoughtful gifts. But Aaron wasn't interested. He declined every invitation and kept his responses to their texts polite but distant. Eventually, he told them directly that he wasn't comfortable maintaining a relationship with them after everything that had happened. For people who had prided themselves on their perfect family image, it was a hard pill to swallow. Emily, meanwhile, had moved back into their house. At first, my parents treated her like a wounded bird, doing everything they could to help her get back on her feet. They covered her expenses, gave her pep talks, and tried to shield her from the growing rumors about her personal life, but it didn't take long for cracks to form. Emily had grown used to a certain lifestyle, and living under their roof again didn't suit her. She argued with them constantly, complained about the lack of privacy, and refused to take responsibility for the situation she'd created. While all this was happening, I made sure to let my parents see how well I was doing. I didn't rub it in their faces, but I wasn't shy about mentioning my recent promotion at work or how I was planning a vacation with some friends. When I visited, I always arrived polished and cheerful, offering to help out around the house or bring dinner. Compared to Emily's outbursts and messy living situation, I was a breath of fresh air. The contrast didn't go unnoticed. My parents, already frustrated with Emily's behavior, started making offhand comments about how she needed to get her act together. They began resenting her, not just for losing Erin but for the ripple effects of her actions. Their relationship with Erin was irreparably damaged, their social standing had taken a hit, and now they were stuck cleaning up Emily's mess. It was a slow shift, but I could see it happening. Around this time, Erin reached out to me again. He sent a heartfelt message thanking me for being there for him during such a difficult time. He mentioned how much he valued my honesty and friendship, saying it had been a relief to have someone he could trust. I responded casually, but it was clear our bond had grown stronger. We started catching up more regularly, meeting for coffee or exchanging funny memes. It wasn't romantic, we were just friends, but it felt like a small victory knowing Emily had no part in his life anymore. While I was thriving at work and strengthening my connections, Emily was struggling to find stable employment. Her reputation, tarnished by rumors and the fallout with Erin, made it difficult for her to secure anything beyond short-term gigs. She'd start a job, only to quit or be let go within weeks. Her frustration boiled over into arguments with my parents, who were growing less patient with her excuses. The financial strain eventually forced my parents to make a drastic decision. They sold the family home. The house, once the center of countless family gatherings and holiday celebrations, was now a symbol of their failures. They used the money to cover Emily's debts and downsize to a smaller, more manageable house. I visited their new place soon after they moved in. It was cozy, but a far cry from the home they'd been so proud of. I couldn't resist pointing out how much had changed, subtly reminding them of what their favoritism had cost them. Emily's downward spiral continued. Isolated from her friends and barely scraping by financially, she finally acknowledged some of her mistakes. She apologized to me during one of my visits, admitting she hadn't always treated me fairly. I accepted her apology, but it was clear she wasn't looking for reconciliation, just a shred of sympathy. I gave her none. My parents, too, began expressing regret for how they'd treated me over the years. They apologized during one of our dinners, saying they wished they'd been more supportive of me when I was younger. I smiled and thanked them, but kept them at arm's length. Their regret felt sincere, but it didn't erase the years of neglect. Erin, now fully moved on from Emily, began dating someone seriously. She seemed kind and grounded, and I couldn't have been happier for him. To show my support, I posted a photo of the two of us at a casual lunch, adding a caption about how grateful I was for his friendship. The post sparked rumors among some of our mutual acquaintances, with a few people speculating about a potential romance. I didn't confirm or deny anything, letting the whispers run their course. Emily, meanwhile, withdrew from everyone. She rarely left my parents' house and stopped responding to messages from the few friends who still reached out. Her once vibrant social media accounts were now silent, with the occasional post about self-care or vague inspirational quotes. She had isolated herself completely, leaving me as the clear winner in the family dynamic. Looking back, the shift was undeniable. My parents, once so sure of Emily's bright future and my supposed mediocrity, now saw things differently. They had lost so much: Erin, their home, their community's respect, and it all traced back to the choices they'd made. I, on the other hand, had everything I needed: a successful career, supportive friends, and the satisfaction of knowing I'd finally evened the playing field. Life took an unexpected but welcome turn after everything settled. I started dating someone new, a colleague I met during a project at work. He was thoughtful, dependable, and, most importantly, genuinely interested in getting to know me without any ulterior motives. My parents, perhaps out of guilt or maybe because they finally saw my worth, were surprisingly supportive. They asked about him often, even inviting him over for dinner. It was a surreal shift from the days when Emily was the center of their attention. Erin and I remained close friends. We still met for the occasional coffee or lunch, and he even started attending family gatherings again, without Emily, of course. Seeing him interact with my parents was a quiet reminder of how much had changed. They were careful around him now, overly polite, as if trying to repair the damage they'd done. Erin was gracious but distant, keeping his conversations light and impersonal. He'd clearly moved on, and I respected him for it. As for Emily, she eventually moved out of my parents' house. It wasn't a grand departure or a celebratory moment. She quietly packed her things and went to stay with a distant cousin. From what I heard, it wasn't a great setup, just a small room in a shared apartment. But she didn't have many options left. Her reputation was still in tatters, and my parents had finally decided to cut off their financial support. They'd spent too much bailing her out of her messes, and it was clear she needed to fend for herself. Meanwhile, things were going exceptionally well for me. I received another promotion at work, one that came with a significant raise. With my newfound financial stability, I decided it was time to buy a house. It wasn't a flashy mansion, but it was mine, a beautiful 3-bedroom home in a quiet neighborhood. Once I was settled, I invited my parents over for dinner. They were visibly impressed, and I could see the realization dawning on them: I had built this life entirely on my own, without their support. During dinner, they apologized again for their years of favoritism. My mom even teared up, saying she regretted not appreciating me more when I was younger. I listened politely but didn't let them off the hook entirely. I mentioned a few specific moments, things they probably thought I'd forgotten, just to remind them of the impact their actions had. They squirmed, clearly uncomfortable, but I didn't press further. The point had been made. Emily, on the other hand, continued to struggle. She bounced between short-term jobs, never staying in one place for long. Her social life had dwindled to almost nothing, and her once vibrant online presence was now reduced to sporadic posts about starting fresh or vague references to learning from mistakes. People weren't buying it. Her credibility was gone, and rebuilding her life was proving harder than she anticipated. Aaron, however, had found happiness. He got engaged to a wonderful woman he'd met through mutual friends. I met her at one of our coffee meetups, and she was as lovely as he'd described. I was genuinely happy for him, knowing he deserved someone who valued him for who he was. Their engagement was low-key but filled with joy, a stark contrast to the chaos that surrounded his previous relationship. My parents, still trying to salvage their reputation, made small attempts to reintegrate themselves into the community. They attended charity events, hosted modest gatherings at their new house, and tried to project an image of a united family. But the gossip never fully went away. People remembered the stories, the favoritism, and the fallout with Aaron. It wasn't something they could erase with a few good deeds. Emily reached out to me once, sending a long message apologizing for everything she'd done. She asked if we could meet and try to rebuild our relationship. I thought about it for a while but ultimately decided against it. Too much had happened, and I didn't see any benefit in reopening old wounds. I responded politely, wishing her well but making it clear that I was moving forward. Reflecting on everything, I realized how much I'd grown. The years of being overlooked and underestimated had shaped me into someone resilient, someone who could thrive despite the odds. My success wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about proving to myself that I was capable of creating the life I wanted. I celebrated my achievements with a small group of close friends and colleagues, people who had supported me through thick and thin. As we raised our glasses to toast the future, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't experienced in years. The toxic dynamics of my past no longer defined me. I was free to live on my own terms, surrounded by people who genuinely cared about me. My parents, still burdened by their regret, tried to bridge the gap with me whenever they could. Their attempts were clumsy but sincere. I kept them at arm's length, not out of spite but as a reminder that trust, once broken, takes time to rebuild. They'd finally recognized the damage their actions had caused, but the scars remained. As for Emily, her journey was her own now. I wasn't part of it, and I didn't need to be. She had made her choices, and I had made mine. The difference was that I had chosen to rise above it all, to build a life that was mine alone. The story ends here, not with a dramatic finale but with a quiet, satisfying resolution. I had won, not just against Emily or my parents but against the doubts that had held me back for so long. And that, more than anything, was enough.